Congressman Wolf, General Mills, Admiral Kemp, General Forsythe, honorable members of the Virginia Legislature, the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors, the Leesburg Town Council, distinguished guests, and most importantly, families of our fallen warriors, good morning. On behalf of the Virginia Army National Guard and the 116th Infantry Brigade Combat Team, it is a profound honor to be with you on this crisp autumn morning in Northern Virginia to pay tribute to our brothers in arms. Loudoun County, Leesburg, and the surrounding towns and hamlets have provided warriors for the defense of the Commonwealth and the nation since the dawn of our republic. My own regiment was formed not far from here in 1742 to defend what was then the frontier of the Americas. Since then, men and women from towns like Leesburg, Reston, Purcellville, Sterling, Lovettsville, and many more have served in every battle and campaign our nation has fought in. Our generation is no different. And today we gather to honor the sacrifice of 4 extraordinary men who gave the last full measure of devotion and defense of our nation. I'd like to take a couple of moments to introduce you to these men of uncommon valor. Army Sergeant Scott L. Kirkpatrick fell while serving in the 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment, and the 2nd Brigade Combat Team of the 3rd Infantry Division. Sergeant Kirkpatrick and his fire team were assaulting a sniper position and arrived at Jabor, Iraq when he was lost. Scott was doing what infantry NCOs do best. He was leading his men from the front in one of the most dangerous places in Iraq. But who was he? Well, Sergeant Kirkpatrick was many things. He was a poet, a writer, and a leader of men. Indeed, Sergeant Kirkpatrick was a Renaissance man who felt strongly that his country needed him after the 9/11 attacks. When he fell, he was on his 2nd combat tour in Iraq, and he had already become what many aspire to be in this life. Sergeant Kirkpatrick, the warrior poet, had earned the undying respect of his fellow warriors, the gratitude of his community and nation, and the love of his family. Today we honor a life well lived. Sergeant Kirkpatrick's decorations include the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, and the Combat Infantryman's Badge. While serving with 3rd Squadron, 61st Cavalry Regiment, and the 4th Brigade Combat Team of the 4th Infantry Division. Specialist Mays and his platoon were fighting a savage defensive action to hold combat outpost Bostik in Kamdesh, Afghanistan, when he was lost. Stefan's outpost was attacked by over 200 Taliban fighters, and his unit was seriously outnumbered in what would be one of the fiercest actions of the entire Afghan campaign. According to his company commander, Specialist Mays fought valiantly from an exposed position with no regard for his own life. Stefan earned the Bronze Star for gallantry in action that day. But who was this gallant Virginian? He was many things. Stefan was a multi-sport athlete. He played football, basketball, baseball, and he loved motocross racing. He was a history buff and no doubt had an acute understanding of his difficult mission in the mountains of Afghanistan. Today we honor his courage to land so far from his Virginia home. Specialist Mays' decorations include the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, and the Combat Action Badge. Army Specialist Douglas J. Green fell while serving with the 3rd Battalion, 21st Infantry Regiment, and the 1st Stryker Brigade Combat Team of the 25th Infantry Division. Specialist Green and his platoon were engaged by Taliban forces with small arms fire and IEDs in Spurwan Gar of Afghanistan's Kandahar province when he was lost. Specialist Green was on his 2nd combat tour, his 1st being in Iraq. In the cold and rugged mountains of Afghanistan, Doug was known for his warmth and the gift of bringing humor and hope to his brother infantrymen even in the toughest of times. Doug was one of those truly inspirational people who could raise the spirits and fortunes of others through the strength of his personality and positive attitude. He's remembered for his selflessness and care for others. Indeed, while stationed in Alaska, he volunteered many hours of his time with big brothers and big sisters. And there can be no doubt that his selflessness and courage were on full display in Kandahar as well. Today we honor a hero with the unique gift to lift the spirits of those around him regardless of the circumstances. Specialist Green's decorations include the Bronze Star with V device for valor, the Purple Heart, and the Combat Infantryman's Badge. Marine Captain Michael M. Quinn fell while serving with Marine Light Attack Helicopter Squadron 469 of the 3rd Marine Air Wing. Captain Quinn, a UH-1 Yankee pilot, was flying a combat training mission in Yuma, Arizona 1 month prior to an upcoming deployment to Afghanistan when he was lost in a helicopter crash. Captain Quinn was a 2006 graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, and his loss reminds us of the outstanding risk our warriors take in training before they ever reach the combat zones they are destined for. Captain Quinn lived a life with zest few can muster. He was a notable athlete, playing soccer as well as track and field. His was also a life of service rarely seen. Michael became an Eagle Scout with Troop 29, and the gazebo he built for his Eagle Project still stands today at Arndt Lutheran Church. Mike was proud to be a U.S. Marine and wear the gold Marines of a Marine aviator. This morning we honor a gallant life of service from one of our nation's best and brightest. Captain Quinn's awards include the Navy Marine Corps Achievement Medal and the Global War and Terror Service Medal. These four exceptional American warriors and patriots remind us that it isn't how long we live, it's how we live. With this monument, we commit the valor of these four men to immortality. 50 or 100 years from now, on another cool October morning, people will stop and read the names of Sergeant Scott Kirkpatrick, Specialist Stefan Mace, Specialist Douglas Green, and Captain Michael Quinn. And their legend will live on. Thank you, and God bless America.
Thank you, Colonel Epley. Family members, honored guests, and Loudoun County residents, thank you for attending today's ceremony. We are here to remember and pay tribute to four Loudoun County residents who made the ultimate sacrifice for this nation. Four fallen warriors who never came home to their families and friends. Liberty is a precious gift whose benefits we all enjoy every day, but too often we give little thought for the price that's paid. We want to take time today to honor their sacrifices and ensure these soldiers will always be remembered. We are still engaged in the war on terrorism. Many young men and women serving in faraway lands that the majority of Americans could not even find on a map or a globe. Those combatants serving do not want to be heroes. They are only performing what they consider is their duty. They do not ask to serve in this war, but they are proud to do so, and they do it with honor. They have taken an oath to serve and defend this country and follow the lawful orders of those above them. They do their duty without complaining and perform remarkable accomplishments in some of the most hazardous and harsh conditions this world has to offer. In the audience today, there are many veterans who served in defense of our nation, whether it be World War II, Korea, Southeast Asia, Desert Storm, Iraqi freedom, or enduring freedom. Our very own Virginia Army National Guard, the 116th Infantry Brigade, has stationed right here in Leesburg, has deployed 5 times overseas to Iraq and Afghanistan. Please join me now in thanking each veteran and those serving still for their sense of duty, patriotism, and commitment to our nation's freedom. I'm going to get off my notes 1 second. I just had a good friend come in, World War II veteran, Stan Calkins, great man, great World War II B-17 pilot. I just saw him come in, so Stan, thank you very much for coming over. You mean an awful lot to come. It's been over 11 years since that terrible day in September that we all now refer to as just 9/11. We all remember where we were that day and the terrible feeling that touched our hearts as we watched innocent people perish, or the shock, as in my case, realized I'd flown with that same crew only a week before. We also knew friends that perished in the Pentagon or knew someone that did. Our resolve was tested, and we demonstrated to the world that our passion for freedom and liberty will never be lost. We would not bow down to cowards and enemies who are entrenched in the hatred for our way of life. We are still engaged in fighting this threat. Many of us have served in this conflict, and some of you have lost friends or loved ones. We cannot replace your loved ones, but we hope to ensure no one will ever forget them. Each of these fallen soldiers knew what their duty was, and surely each of them dreamed of going home to the people they loved and the life they cherished. Each of them had families waiting eagerly to see them again. We know that they were forced to leave their hopes and dreams behind when they went off to war. They parted with them forever when they died. As President Reagan said, most of those who died in defense of our country were boys when they died, and they gave up 2 lives. The one they were living, and the ones they would have lived. They gave up their chance to be husbands, fathers, and grandfathers. They gave up everything for the country, for us. The least we can do is remember. You've all heard many times, freedom is not free. I want to emphasize that the military is not another government program where people are given free entitlements. The recipients give their service, their sweat, their blood, and often their lives. I pray to God that the world will live in peace, but as we know, there are still evil people out there who wish to do us harm. I also pray there will never be another war, but it's also important to remember the words of John Stuart Mill. War is an ugly thing, but not the ugliest of things. The decayed and degraded state of a moral and patriotic feeling which thinks that nothing is worth war is much worse. The person who has nothing for which he is willing to fight, nothing which is more important than his own personal safety, is a miserable creature and has no chance of being free unless made and kept so by exertions of better men than himself. Every life lost is a tragedy. Is a loss to our military, to our nation, and to the families who grieve. At this tribute, we struggle to understand the meaning of what sacrifice and that loss. It always seems so much more painful than words alone can convey. All we can do is remember the sacrifices made for us and for our freedom. A leader stated, "Our nation grieves for the brave men and women whose lives have ended in freedom's cause. No one can take away the sorrow that comes to the families or the fallen. We can only say that these Americans served in a noble and necessary cause, and their sacrifices made our nation and the world more secure. We will honor their memory forever." As we unveil the plaque to honor our fallen citizens, look at their names and dates described on them. Behind each name is a story of grief and loss that comes to a family, to a child, or to a community. Eventually, the day will come when no one is left behind who knew the story of that person engraved on the plaque. But America will never forget what they did for our nation. Today we honor 4 fallen comrades who have left us too soon, whose lives were cut short in faraway places. As you hear taps played in their honor, I urge you to take a moment to reflect upon these men and others who sacrificed their lives so we can enjoy the freedom that we share today. This tribute is something each of us can do to keep the memory alive in our hearts. We owe them nothing less than to remember and to give thanks for all they have done on our behalf. On behalf of a grateful nation and a community, we remember them and pledge that we'll never forget. I am honored to have served with such warriors, and I am humbled to be today's speaker. I thank each of you for attending this special ceremony. We will now have the plaques unveiled and the laying of memorial wreaths. This will be performed by Loudoun County Post 1177. We'll then have a 21-gun salute performed by the 116th Infantry Brigade, and then taps played by Linda Yates and Shannon Faulkner. At this time, if you would all please rise.
Reset.